It was an early morning in Miami, the salty air from the sea blending with the sharp scent of fuel on the runway. Isabella Aldridge wrapped her sleek leather jacket tighter around her body as she stepped off the private car that had driven her to the airstrip. The luxury jet, a brand-new Falcon 10X, gleamed under the morning sunlight, its polished silver skin almost blinding. The plane was hers, her pride and joy, yet no one observing her would guess it. She walked up the short stairs into the plane, her heels clicking on the metal steps with a rhythmic precision. Inside, the cabin was pristine, the leather seats untouched, and the walls gleaming in rich mahogany. Everything was in perfect order. She set her carry-on on the seat she preferred, in the middle of the plane by the large window, and without a second thought, draped her jacket over the backrest. The flight was to be routine, a quick business trip to Chicago for a shareholder meeting, and then back to Miami by nightfall. She checked her watch. Perfect timing, as always. She liked arriving early, giving herself a moment to breathe before the whirlwind of her day began. But that calm wouldn't last for long. A sharp, commanding voice broke the silence. "Excuse me, who are you, and what are you doing here?" Isabella turned around slowly to face the source of the voice. A flight attendant, somewhere in her 30s, tall with tightly pulled back auburn hair and a stern look on her face, was walking down the aisle toward her. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion as she crossed her arms. "I'm supposed to be here," Isabella replied, her voice calm and even, giving the woman a small but polite smile. But the flight attendant didn't soften. "And who exactly allowed you to board this plane?" she demanded. Isabella blinked, trying to gauge the seriousness of the situation. "I own this jet," she said simply, her voice steady and unflinching. The flight attendant scoffed, her laugh sharp and dismissive. "Yeah, sure you do," she replied with obvious sarcasm. "You're going to need to leave. Now." For a brief moment, Isabella didn't move. She simply studied the woman, her mind racing. But the look in the attendant's eyes wasn't playful. It was cold and dismissive. She took a small step forward and spoke calmly again. "I'm Isabella Aldridge. I own Aldridge Aviation. This is my aircraft." There was an awkward pause, thick with tension, but the attendant's posture didn't waver. If anything, she seemed more resolute. "You need to leave," the attendant said again, her voice rising a notch, more forceful this time. Isabella felt a flicker of frustration stir inside her, but she swallowed it down. She wasn't going to create a scene. That wasn't her style. She maintained her composure and was about to speak again when the woman, in a sudden burst of aggression, grabbed her by the arm. That was when things escalated quickly. Instinctively, Isabella jerked her arm back, not with force, but with practiced precision. "Let go of me," she said, her voice dropping several degrees colder now. The attendant, whose name was Rebecca, didn't back off. Instead, she moved closer, her face hardening. "You think you can just waltz in here and lie your way into a free flight?" she hissed. "I don't know what scam you're running, but not today." Isabella met her gaze, unblinking. "I'm not running any scam," she said, her voice icy. "I'm the reason this plane exists." For a moment, it seemed as if the tension might break. But Rebecca's eyes flicked over Isabella, her simple black dress, her modest heels, the jacket she had casually tossed aside, and the disbelief in her gaze deepened. In her mind, Isabella didn't fit the profile of someone who could own an aircraft like this. She didn't resemble the polished CEOs or the wealthy businessmen Rebecca was used to. Isabella's expression hardened. She was used to being underestimated, but it didn't make it any easier to tolerate. "Call the captain," Isabella said, her voice low but firm. Before she could say another word, Rebecca swung her hand forward and slapped Isabella across the face. The sound echoed through the cabin, sharp and unforgiving. For a long moment, Isabella did not flinch. She didn't stumble, didn't even gasp. She merely touched her cheek with the back of her hand, her eyes locked onto Rebecca's with a chilling calm. A hush fell over the cabin. The passengers, who had begun boarding, froze, witnessing the confrontation. One man, a tech mogul from New York, dropped his coffee. The liquid spilled over the floor, but no one moved to clean it up. They were too absorbed in the scene unfolding in front of them. Rebecca seemed to realize, in that split second, the magnitude of her mistake. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her radio and fumbled for words. "I'm calling security," she muttered, her voice shaky. Isabella didn't flinch. She just nodded. "Please do," she said quietly, her tone unwavering. It was then that the captain, a tall, well-built man named Lucas Carter, emerged from the cockpit. He was a seasoned pilot, one who had been with Aldridge Aviation for over 7 years. When he saw Isabella, his face instantly registered recognition. His eyes widened, then narrowed, his posture becoming more alert. "Miss Aldridge," he said, his voice cutting through the tension in the cabin, "is everything all right?" Rebecca looked from the captain to Isabella, confusion and disbelief written all over her face. "Miss Aldridge," she repeated, almost as if trying to comprehend the words. Isabella gave a small, dignified nod to the captain. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said calmly. Captain Lucas strode forward, his demeanor respectful but stern. "I'm very sorry, Miss Aldrich. We'll take care of this right away." Rebecca's face drained of color. The reality of what she had just done hit her with the force of a freight train. "You're not serious," she stammered, her voice cracking. She said she owns the plane." Isabella turned toward her slowly, her gaze cold. "Not just the plane," she said evenly. "I own the company, Aldridge Aviation. This jet, this flight, every employee here." The silence in the cabin deepened, heavy and thick. The passengers, already on edge, exchanged hushed whispers. One woman, a hedge fund manager from Los Angeles, quietly pulled out her phone to capture the moment. But it wasn't over yet. Lucas leaned in, speaking just loud enough for only Isabella and Rebecca to hear. "You need to apologize," he said firmly. Immediately, Rebecca's eyes darted between the captain and Isabella, her face red with humiliation. For a moment, it seemed like she might argue, but her shoulders sagged, her pride completely crumbling. I'm sorry," Rebecca mumbled, her apology weak and insincere. Isabella remained silent, pulling a black business card from her jacket pocket. She placed it on the tray table between them, the gold foil embossed text reading, "Isabella Aldridge, CEO of Aldridge Aviation." Rebecca stared at the card, unable to speak, her hands trembling. Captain Lucas turned to Isabella. "Would you like her removed from the flight, Miss Aldridge?" Isabella observed the room, the passengers, the staff, and Rebecca's panic-stricken face. She could have had Rebecca removed or press charges, but she wasn't seeking revenge. She wanted to teach a lesson. "No," Isabella replied, her voice firm. "She'll stay." The tension in the cabin lifted. Rebecca, shaken, stood still, barely able to keep her composure. Isabella calmly sat back in her seat as the jet prepared for takeoff. The silence in the cabin was palpable, everyone sensing the power shift. 2 hours later, Rebecca returned, her steps hesitant. "Would you like something to drink, Miss Aldridge?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Water," Isabella replied. "Room temperature, no ice." Rebecca left, visibly shaken. Isabella, unfazed, exited the plane, letting the admiration linger. In the car, she reflected, true power is shown in how you carry yourself, not appearances.